Have you ever gone to a church leadership conference, gone back to your home church and tried all the things that the pastor of the big church who was the speaker did, but when you tried them in your small church, they didn't work? And then afterwards you wonder, was that speaker wrong or am I just stupid? If you've ever felt that way, you're not alone. I think most, maybe every small church pastor has felt that way at some time. So I think it's something we need to talk about. Hi, my name's Carl Vaders, and this is a short talk that introduces my longer talk called Three Ways a Small Church Can Be an Effective Church. Now, that may even sound like an interesting title to you because you may not realize that a small church can even be an effective church, which of course is the first point. Point number one, way number one that your church has to change in order to be an effective church if you're small is this. You have to realize that a small church can be an effective church. Whether you think your small church can be effective while it's small, or if you think it cannot be effective while it's small, either way, you will be right. If you don't think you can be effective, you won't. But the first change to effectiveness isn't getting bigger. It's knowing that you can be effective at the size you are right now. This is one of the reasons why the context of hearing from our big church friends sometimes doesn't work in our small churches, because the presumption when we're hearing from bigger churches is that big equals successful and effective, and small, therefore, is unsuccessful and ineffective. And if you think you can't be effective until you're bigger, you've got it backwards. So step number one for a small church to become a healthy and effective church is you have to know you can be effective. Secondly, you then need to discover how big churches function differently than small churches. This again is where some of that disconnect comes from. A lot of what we hear from our big church friends, what they're saying is not wrong. It simply doesn't fit our context. But we're not told, first of all, that this may not work in a smaller context. And secondly, even if we do understand that the big context and the small context are different, nobody's telling us how they're different. Nobody's giving us a way to filter the big church ideas into a small church context, or simply to toss some of them because they don't apply. So one of the things we really need to understand is how small churches function differently than our big church friends. Thirdly, then we need to understand and use the unique DNA of your small church for God's glory. Yes, your small church has unique DNA. God knows about it. Jesus set it up that way, and Jesus is not upset about the size of your church. You might be, but he's not. He has a design for your church. He has a plan for your church. He has ministry for your church. And a big part of what is going to make your church healthy and effective has to do with the size you are, not in the future, but right now. Here's the truth. People will come to small churches. Yay! But they won't give up quality to do so. Oh. So why does the front half of that sentence sound encouraging? They will come to small churches, but the back half sounds discouraging. They won't give up quality to do so. The reason for that is we have a big church understanding of quality, and we seldom pay attention to what quality looks like in a small church. And small churches have a different vision of quality than our big church friends have. In a big church, quality is visible and it's obvious, and it usually has great technical excellence. And in a small church, it's not as visible, it's not as obvious, and you may not have a lot of technical excellence, but you do have something that people want. You have the personal connection. You have the relationships. This is why, for instance, I have a podcast that I've entitled The Church Lobby. Why? Because when I was a young pastor in training, I was taught how to do ministry from the platform. I was not taught how to do ministry in the church lobby, face to face with individual people. But the more I pastored small churches, the more I realized my church lobby skills were just as important as my church platform skills, and sometimes more important. So a small church can be healthy, can be effective. Just we need to realize, one, you can be effective. Two, we need to realize the differences between big and small. And three, we need to lean into the value of the small. For more information about this and other full-length sessions that I can bring to your conference, to a webinar, or even to a multi-day workshop, go to carlvaders.com/speaking. When you get there, you'll see more teaching videos like this with segments from some of my other talks and ways that you can get a hold of me if you're interested in having me come to speak to your group.